Hey, it's Ethan with ComTech. So if you haven't heard about the ransomware event with Change Healthcare, I would be surprised. If you haven't heard about it, I'm guessing that you probably have been impacted over the last few months and early part of 2024. So I want to do a quick video. I hate putting disclaimers at the very beginning of the video, but I have to here because I want to make sure everyone understands that I'm not trying to down Change Healthcare. They're a very large company, as you'll see here in a moment, very, very large company. And this can happen to literally anyone. I'm using this video, or I'm hoping to use this video, so that way we can all learn from this and pull away just a couple of lessons and go back and kind of check our bases and make sure we're covered. So the first thing, who is Change Healthcare? You probably don't know the specifics of Change Healthcare because they're a back-end provider, as you'll see here in a moment, but they are a piece of United Health. You've probably heard of United Health. They were acquired back in 2022 for $13 billion. I mainly put the $13 billion in there to stress again that this is a very large company. It's not that they're a small mom and pop show. So this can happen to anyone. And then, as you see there, they help process a lot of the back-end payments for healthcare. So if you go into the doctor, they file your insurance, there's a good chance that Change Healthcare has some piece of that to make sure that the doctor gets the insurance money, that sort of thing. They 1.5 trillion annually. So let's talk about the timeline very quickly. The first thing is on February 2021, you'll see that they had a cyber attack. They said, hey, we've got a cyber attack going on. We're figuring out what's going on. Now, over a week later, we end up with, they're still pretty much down. So they start reaching out to these providers, these hospitals or physicians or whoever it is, and says, hey, we're going to try to help because we can't process insurance payments right now. We're going to start offering loans. And then some systems come back online. Now, and this was on 3/7. I'm giving a very general timeline, but my point that I want to make here is it started on 2/21. It was pretty much 2-3 weeks before some systems were back online. I make this point because I know a lot of people that watch these videos are small businesses. Think about if you had to truly shut down operations and you couldn't process any payroll, any payments, you couldn't do any business for 3 weeks, 3 weeks plus. That's typically a kind of a business killer. And then finally, so it has come out now, and the CEO has come out of United Healthcare, or Change Healthcare, I apologize. They've came out and said, hey, unfortunately, we did have to pay $22 million to the hackers to unlock our data. That was the ransom that they had to pay. So here's the very short version. February, they get hit with ransomware. Mid-March, some services are restored. When I'm creating this video in the middle of May, they're still restoring services. Now, a lot of their services are back running, but it is still going. I make that point again to say that if you're a small business and you're watching that, that imagine going 60 to 90 days, something like that, with not being able to operate because you're still trying to rebuild your system from scratch. I actually took a couple of screenshots here of Change Healthcare's website, which kudos to them for having a page that shows these services are active, these services are not. But you'll see everything in green is partial service available, and then yellow is they're still restoring. And this is, like I said, roughly 2.5, 3 months later. Again, I just put this on here to just put yourself in their shoes as a small business owner. It would be rough. So what can we learn from this? The first thing is, as I've said multiple times, this is an issue for everyone. Doesn't matter how large of a company you are, this is an issue for absolutely all of us. So we all need to be kind of on our toes and doing everything we can to prevent this. Kudos for you for watching this YouTube channel and this video. Hopefully it helps. We need to go back to the basics. I'll cover a couple of basics that are free here in just a moment. The final thing I'll say on this slide is I watched 2+ hours of the CEO sitting in front of Congress and Congress kind of drilling this CEO and asking him, how did this happen and what are we going to do now? So I'm putting this out here as of May of 2024 when I'm recording this. I fully expect for events like this to keep happening to very large companies, and then I fully expect the government to try to get more and more involved. More regulation is almost certainly coming. I don't know if I'm necessarily happy about that statement, but I just think it's the truth. I mention this because I'll talk about cybersecurity here in just a moment. Be aware that there's just going to be more government regulations that are almost going to be forcing everyone to do certain things. So let's talk about the free basics that you can do right now. Some of this stuff is, I think, very logical and obvious, but I always like to mention it. First thing is obviously check your password policy. Make sure you have a good one. I'm not going to go into specifics of what that may be, but make sure everyone's not using, no password or the word password as a password. Multi-factor authentication. Anytime you can use that, I highly recommend you use that. I'll have a video here coming out soon on the channel about tips for multi-factor authentication. So definitely look there. We'll have that link in the description. Have multiple layers of security. So in the past, maybe 20 years ago, it was good enough to have just, you go out and you buy McAfee or Norton or whatever it may be, buy one piece of antivirus and then you're covered. Unfortunately, it isn't that way anymore. You do need a layered approach where you have multiple pieces of security to protect you. And then the final thing is, and this is probably, I would say this is the biggest, and that's why I put a star there, is because training of the employees of everyone about this stuff, that is what is going to help combat that. Now, speaking of that, we do have a free training that we offer. So go to that link below. I'll have the link in the description as well. Definitely go there, get signed up if you're interested, but we cover a lot of different things. You could see them on the screen there. I'm not going to read them out, but that's free. Okay, so some of the basics for the paid. First thing is, it is recommended. I don't see a tremendous amount of companies doing this, but it is recommended to have a third party come in and do a scan of your systems, do a third party analysis and say, hey, we recommend fixing all of these things. I mentioned earlier that almost certainly more government regulation is coming into play. There are a lot of industries right now that are government regulated where the government regulates and says you have to have a third-party analysis once a quarter or whatever it may be. It's a good idea. I just mentioned it there. It does cost money though, as I said, the paid. We do it here at ComTech. There's a lot of other companies that do it. It's recommended. Cybersecurity insurance. We recommend you have some cybersecurity insurance. Again, look very closely at that cybersecurity policy to figure out what is required from them. And then I would recommend that you do those things because there are a lot of cybersecurity insurance companies now that people are getting hit. They get hit with ransomware and the cybersecurity insurance company comes in and says, hey, you said you had all these things. Maybe it required a third-party analysis once a quarter. You are only doing it once every 6 months. The cybersecurity insurance has every right to say, hey, you said you were doing this, you weren't, we're going to deny the claim. Final thing that I have here is practice runs. In our industry, it's called tabletops. It is, imagine, if you don't get anything more out of this video, I hope you get this, which is imagine, sit around in your management team tomorrow or sometime this week and just say, hey, let's look at what happened to Change Healthcare. What would we do if our systems were hit with ransomware? What would the CEO do? What would the marketing person do? What would this person do? Run through some scenarios to try to just think about these things to ensure that if it ever does happen, and I pray that it doesn't, if it ever does, that you at least have some idea on what your plan is. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Have a great day.